Grow My SME webinar. This is part of a series of webinars. For those that haven't been on these before, part of a series of webinars that are put out by the Humber Growth Hub to help Humber businesses upskill and develop and grow and learn new things. And they have consultants in from all different backgrounds and expertise, delivering these webinars to try and give you some insight into how you can advance in your business, with a particular focus on adopting digital technology. These are very much about adopting digital and understanding how it works and seeing how you can leverage and use it to make your business better. So that's what these are all about. The webinars are a part of a wider package of support that the Growth Hub is putting out for Humber businesses to help them continue and grow, particularly navigate this particular weird period that we're in at the moment with the whole COVID thing, but just generally to drive forward. And at the end of the webinar, I'll be talking about some very specific support that you can receive, which is personalized, tailored to you, where consultants come into your business and work with you. It's all free of charge. It's all provided by the Growth Hub. But again, very much with a focus on adopting digital technology and working how you can use that and to grow and to thrive and survive. And particularly prevalent, many of you probably have seen the press briefing this morning from the scientific advisors, the medical advisors for the COVID thing. I think the underlying message of that, if you haven't seen it, is there's probably going to be tighter restrictions coming up because the cases are rising again in terms of COVID. And so it's more important than ever to be able to understand how you're going to be, how your business is going to be agile and how it's going to be able to navigate these sorts of disruption. Not just COVID, we're talking about COVID because that's the thing that's been brought to the forefront, but actually well before there was any pandemic, businesses were being disrupted. And primarily that was through some form of digital means because essentially we're in a digital first climate. And that's basically what we're going to be talking about today in understanding that and how you can leverage that for your own business. So quick introduction, my name is Wayne Willis. I'm one of the partners and consultants at Edenic Group. As a little bit of background, Edenic Group is an innovation consultancy. We work with businesses and organizations all around the world to help them develop innovation strategies, help them build a culture of innovation, and then develop new ideas, new concepts, using digital in some part. That's going to play a huge role in it, but ultimately thinking differently about their business offer so that they're able to grow, thrive, and future-proof and innovate ultimately. And so we're here to deliver. We're one of the consultants that are appointed to deliver these webinars to try and give a little bit of top-level insight, at least with these webinars, to feed that to you. I'm joined also by Jamie Del Grosso, who's my partner at Edenic Group. Jamie will be taking you through most of the presentation today. Oh, there he is. Okay, I'll just go back a step. And what we talk about, so how to build and grow a successful digital first business. That's what we're touching upon today. And ultimately, we'll be talking about digital technology and essentially how to embrace this. And Jamie will touch about some of the specifics, but the message here is, we're not saying be digital and change everything that you do and now you have to stop doing what you're doing and turn into an IT firm or something. We're not saying that. We're just saying that there's an excellent opportunity out there by embracing digital technology. It can help you overcome barriers, it can reduce costs, but also it can open new markets, give you new revenue streams. And we want to talk about all of that and how you can adapt that in your own business. So that's where we will be going. One thing I am aware of is there's a lot of webinars going on at the moment, a lot of Zoom calls and things like that. And we're kind of getting to the point of fatigue and death by webinar. So we try to avoid that where possible. So we do encourage you to speak to us. Use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen there, or the chat box. Leave us a comment, ask us a question. We'll be giving you very much top level information, but I'm aware that people are attending from all different types of businesses of all different sizes and all different sectors. And therefore, we want to try and tailor as much of it as we can to you where possible. So please feel free to ask us questions and we'll try and field those throughout, or if not at the end at least. And then at the end of the session, if you can stick around, I'll tell you how you can access more direct support. Okay, with that in mind, I'll hand it to Jamie and we'll blast off. Thanks very much, Jamie.
Great. Thanks, Wayne. Hi, guys. As Wayne said, we are from the Edenic Group, and we are an innovation consultancy. And one thing that we speak to all of our clients about is when we're talking about innovation, there's three core principles that we say people need to adopt in
Jamie, I think we've just lost you there. I think you're
focus on.
So just you just froze there, so we just lost you. I think you're back again now.
Yep. Okay, sorry.
Got you.
Yeah. So today we're going to focus on the idea of embracing digital. So as Wayne said, it's not about making everything in your business digital. You don't need to become a digital only business. But by embracing technology and what that can do, it can help you with your business, with your growth, with your resilience to situations that may come about, such as the situation that most businesses are in right now. And what I want to do before we actually get into explaining how you can adopt digital technology and the different things to look at is just kind of touch upon the impacts that digital has had on business and the impact it can have on business. So there's a few of you that have actually been in some of these webinars before, so you've probably seen some of these slides. So please just bear with us if we're going through stuff you've already seen. So when we're talking about digital, what we're talking about is the use of physical or virtual technology to aid in a function or operation. So when we talk about physical technology, that's anything that we would class as a hardware, or virtual is anything we would class as a software. And it's to aid you in doing the things that you do every day to make your business run. It's just to make those operations and those functions a little bit easier, or maybe to automate them or to add value to them. So it's there just to help push what you do as a business, make your life easier and make growth easier. So just to look at how that's actually been put into play and how that's changed the business landscape as we know it. If you look sort of further back in the past and you look at the large corporations that used to exist, in order for them to exist at the size they were and to scale and to become these significant sized businesses, they would need to look something like this. They would need large infrastructure, lots of staff, lots of resources, and also lots of money in order to grow to that point. Now, the benefit of this to businesses like this is they were able to see all the other businesses that were growing to that level. They were able to see all the competitors and threats, because for someone to grow to that size, to have that resource, to have those buildings, to have that staff, it was something that they could see, they were aware of. So it made them more aware of what was going on around them, and it made it a lot harder to disrupt these kind of businesses. Where nowadays, a business with that same level of growth and scale could look something like this. So there's entire businesses now that are run either remotely or through laptops and smart devices. And it's actually possible to do a whole chunk of your business and growth just using digital technology and automation and the tools that are available. So you no longer need those huge resources. You can start a business now at zero or very, very close to zero cost if you have the tools and the knowledge already. So what this means is that the business landscape is now much noisier. There's much more businesses appearing. And it also means that people are able to be disrupted much easier, because these companies that are appearing tend not to be seen, tend not to be as visible until a point where they're already at a very significant scale and then already able to disrupt these industries. So for legacy businesses, this creates a new threat, but for new businesses, it creates great opportunity, because it means for those of you that are small businesses but are smart enough to embrace the tools that we have around us and are able to use these methods, you can actually grow something very substantial, make quite a lot of money at very little cost or resource to yourself. And if we look at what that may mean for the future, so this funny looking animation is from a computer called Google DeepMind. So Google DeepMind is a machine learning computer. And what that means is, unlike standard AI, which is it's taught a series of responses and ways to deal with questions, machine learning can figure out those answers itself. It's a very simplified way of putting it, but with machine learning, the computer can actually discover answers and discover the things it needs to know itself. And in a lot of cases, quicker than humans can. So in this example, the computer was given this humanoid figure and sort of an obstacle course. And the engineers basically told the computer, figure out the quickest way to move this humanoid figure from point A to point B, and just see how it would maneuver and how it would tackle that challenge. And within, I think it was within 3 hours, this this computer was able to figure out the mechanics of walking. Bearing in mind, it'd never seen a human walk. It had no access to see humans walking. It just had the figure. It was able to figure out those mechanics and navigate these courses, which, if you take into account how long it would take a human to understand those mechanics, it's much quicker, and able to understand these things much more quickly than we can. So if we then take that into the idea of business and the idea of automation and using these tools to help us run businesses, and these tools are actually available now. You can actually plug into Google DeepMind or IBM Watson, which is another machine learning computer, and you can actually access this tool to create predictions and to do computations for your business, for your platform. So this kind of shows that we're actually moving to an age where the technology that we're developing is getting faster and faster and able to do these things and aid us much more quickly. And if we look at the growth of digital as well, so this is a bit of research that was done by a company called The Emergent Future. And basically what they do is they look at predicted trends in technology and how that will impact us in the future. And what they did is they did some research to see how quickly we were developing technology. And what they found is the technology that we develop is in turn helping us develop the next wave of technology and speed up that growth. So as we're developing things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all the other tech revolution platforms that we've developed over the last so many years, those platforms are then helping us develop the next wave of technology and develop them quicker. So they found that over the space of the next 5 years, if we follow the trajectory that we are on now, that in 5 years' time, we will be 32 times more technologically advanced than we are today. When they looked at over a further period of time, over 10 years, due to that snowball effect and that technology aiding more technology and this continual growth, they said that we would be 1,000 times more advanced over the next 10 years. And then when they went even further, over 20 years, they said 1,000,000 times more advanced. Now, this seems like really dramatic figures, but if we take into account how some of the technology that we have nowadays has influenced the lives we live and the things that we are developing, it's not so difficult to imagine that we would actually be able to develop much more quickly as more things are created. So if we take into account, this is Simon. So this is the first touchscreen phone that was released. I think it was released by IBM. And this was released in 1991. Now, if you look at this now, this looks prehistoric to some of the things that we have in our phones and we use every day. But this was actually quite a short period of time ago in terms of how long we've had these devices around. And the capabilities that we've developed from this to nowadays phones and smart devices that we're actually using to run businesses that are influencing every part of our lives, that almost everybody has in their pockets. It shows how much we have grown in that short period of time. And then if we look at the technology that came about much more recently, someone said that you start from the Simon phones. I'm quite impressed. I'd love to see that if you've actually got one. If we look at a bit of technology that actually came about much more recently. So virtual reality, although the concept of virtual reality has been around for quite a while, it's only been a consumer available product for a very small amount of years now. And it's only started to be adopted in the very recent couple of years. But what we're seeing already is in certain industries, the use of virtualization, so creating these virtual worlds and being able to create simulations and virtual experiences, people have been able to develop things that they would not be able to develop usually. So this example is someone using it for engineering and developing what looks like an engine or something. To develop that physically would be very costly. If it doesn't work, it can cost the business a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. By using these virtualization tools, people are able to test things much more quickly. They're able to train in things much more quickly. And in the very short period of time, and we are only talking a few years since this has been used in these kind of industries, it's had huge effects, and people have developed things that they wouldn't have been able to develop without this technology. So we can see that time gap from the Simon phone to where we are now, and virtual reality from release to actually what's allowing us to develop now. It's growing much more quickly, and that time gap is becoming shorter and shorter. So understanding how much digital and technology has affected our businesses and can affect our business. If we're looking at embracing digital ourselves as a business, or we're looking at creating digital services, the first thing that we need to understand is the digital first consumer. Now, this is a term that people use a lot in marketing, the digital first consumer. I would argue that almost every consumer in the world now is a digital first consumer. The majority of people that you are selling to or speaking to, or even the businesses you may be working with, will be digital first, because it's almost impossible to do anything now without the use of digital. So some of these trends that we're going through, it doesn't really matter what business you're in, what it is that you're looking to do, whether you're looking to create a digital product to sell to customers, whether you're looking at how to use digital within your own business, or within your network of businesses that you work with. The use of digital and understanding how people engage with digital, I think is universal, and should be understood by everyone. So one of the first things that I think is worth discussing is the impact of social media. So the digital first consumer or customer will use social media much more now as a trust platform than they would have done ever in the past. So people are now looking for brands, products, businesses that they may engage with on social media first as a way of reputation checking before they will purchase a product. So even if people go directly to your website, what a lot of people are seeing is a trend of people going to a website and then going to Facebook and looking for a brand on Facebook and looking at what people are saying. Also, if we reverse that, people that engage with a product on social media are much more likely to then engage with the brand afterwards. So if you look at things like e-commerce is a particularly strong area for this. 43% of consumers are now more likely to buy a new product if they hear about it on social media first. And I would guess that given what's going on recently and with everything kind of moving online, this has probably actually grown, and this trend is actually probably much higher than that now. And if we get to go away from e-commerce and actually just look at general business to business and gaining new customers, 60% of SMBs have said that they are gaining new customers through social media. So actually, it's not just something to post cool pictures on and try and get likes and comments. Actually, a lot of people are using this to drive sales and to build revenue. So whether you like social media or not, and regardless of all the kind of talk that goes around social media at the moment, whatever your product is, whatever your project is, whatever it is that you're aiming to achieve, we have to bear in mind that the world now, the digital world, is more social, it is more hyper-connected through these platforms, and that should be taken into account in whatever it is that you're producing. And another thing to bear in mind, and this should be obvious to most people, is the majority of traffic nowadays is mobile first. So it's been a growing trend ever since smartphones were able to access the internet, that more and more people were choosing to use phones over laptops or desktop devices to access the internet. But actually what we're seeing now is that the majority of customers are now choosing to use phones over laptops or desktops to access websites and information about a customer, about a business. So if we look at a trend from 2013 to 2019, we could see that mobile traffic was up of 222%. Now, again, I think that because of some of the trends that we've seen recently, the global changes that we've seen, that this will be much, much higher. Sorry, Sal, yes. When we talk about mobile, we are talking about all mobiles and physically mobile devices. So that could be smartphones, tablets, and anything that kind of falls into that category. And we are seeing a huge rise in people using these kind of devices to access the internet now. So even though people have laptops and desktop computers, if they're looking for information, they're actually going to the phone first, and that's the first thing they do. And as I said before, the trend was always that there was a good amount of people using mobiles, but it was always desktop first. But as time's gone on, desktop usage has just dropped and dropped, and it continues to drop while mobile usage keeps going up. And I think we will get to a point where really when we're looking at desktop usage, we're only talking about business customers. We're only talking about people that are looking at the internet through work. And the majority, the majority of consumers will be using mobile devices. So when we're looking at the solutions that we're creating or how we're implementing digital, it's worth considering this, because even in workplaces, people are starting to use more mobile devices, whether that's a phone or a tablet. Sorry. And finally, the consumer is now more ecosystem aware. So when we're talking about ecosystems, we're talking about these kind of networks of devices that we get bought into, and more devices are becoming ecosystem-based devices. So here I've got the picture of the Amazon Echo devices. I won't say the name in case anyone's got one. And with these platforms allow us to create these ecosystems around our house. But if we look even at the computers and the phones and things that we're all using, if you're an Apple user, for example, and you have an iMac and you have an Apple phone, an iPhone, then chances are then that you are using iTunes for your music, and then you may have an Apple TV and things like that. So you kind of buy into an ecosystem. So when people are looking at new products to buy, they are taking into account the ecosystems that they're already bought into. So if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you need a new TV box, you're much more likely to buy the Apple TV than you are to buy another TV provider, because that's already the ecosystem that you're bought into. So where you can incorporate the idea of these ecosystems, it makes it much more likely that a customer will buy into the product or the service or the idea that you're creating. And we're talking about consumer ecosystems, but even in business, there's a lot of business ecosystems that exist that people are using. And if we can integrate with those ecosystems and become part of that network, you're much more likely to get adoption than if you are a standalone product that can't integrate with these things. So, so the next thing that I wanted to go through is, what is a digital product? You know, if you're actually looking at developing something yourself, what is the core things that you need to understand? And I want to try and break it down into a very simple, easy to understand way, so that no matter what your skill level is or how much you've engaged in the digital landscape, you can understand the basics that you would need to know to start a digital product or a digital service. So when we're looking at any digital products, now this could be an app, this could be a website, this could be anything. In general, these are the kind of key areas. This is the key anatomy for any digital product. So the very first step is the storage, which is basically what would host all the data that actually runs whatever that is, that app, that website. And it's essentially the brains of what it is that you're creating. Then you'd have the back-end systems. Now, you'll hear these terms a lot, back-end and front-end. You have back-end and front-end developers. And a lot of people, if you're not used to the idea of digital, can get confused by these terms. But basically, when we're talking about a back-end, what we're talking about is function. It's the things that make that app, that website, work and function as it's intended to work. So this can be the infrastructure that's used to build that platform. It could be the coding language that's chosen. It could be the logic created so that when a consumer does this, this is the end result. And then the last step is the front end. And this is kind of the pretty bit. This is actually where the user interacts with the project, with the project. So that could be the user interface, that's the website they're accessing. And when we're talking about front end, what we're really talking about is how to make it user-friendly, how to make it attractive to the user, and how to create an experience that the user will want to be part of. So those are the three key areas of any digital product. Now, you can get much more in depth with that, but really, if you have that understanding, then you can kind of understand the basics of any projects that you may take on. So just to put this into some sort of example, if we take the analogy of a car and we say that the digital products we're creating is this car, then when we're talking about storage, we can think of that as the fuel for the car. So this is the thing that actually powers the machine. It's the thing that makes it move forward. Without the fuel, you could have the best car in the world, but it won't go anywhere. So when we're talking about storage, we're talking about the data that's collected, how it's being used, and where it's really where the value is. So it's always sort of the key thing is to make sure that you have value within that data. Following on from that, we have the back end. So if you think about the back end as the engine of the vehicle, so it's the thing that physically makes it function. It's the bare mechanics that get it moving, that create the momentum that you need. Then the front end is kind of the pretty bit that people buy into. So that would be the shell of the car, the thing that people see, and this is normally the thing that will make them decide whether they want to go further into looking into that product. Does it look good enough? Does it look interesting? Okay, I'll investigate further. And the final step is the UX. So when we say UX, we're talking about the user experience. And this is like the innards of the car. This is how the user actually interacts with that project. So is it easy to use? Can they figure out how to actually make it function? So there is lots of examples of really great digital products that have come about, but essentially they may look great, they may have a great concept behind them, but a user just can't figure out how to use them. So they won't be adopted. People will take them on and then drop them for something that is much more easy to use. So these are the key steps that you should consider for any project. It doesn't matter if it's internal, it's for your own team, for yourself, or for consumers. Really, all of these things need to be considered. And if you can consider all of these and get all of these right, that's the fundamentals for a successful digital project. Now, the next thing to look at is, okay, you know those are the basics of making the project, but what project should I create? So I think there's some people on the call today that have already started projects or underway with projects and have ideas, but there may be some people that are thinking, I want to embrace digital, but actually what should I look at? What ideas should I be looking at putting in place for my consumers and for ourselves as businesses? So what I've broken down here is what I call the 5 E's of consumer needs. And these are 5 things that when it comes to digital technology that most consumers will look for. And this will help sell that project to your end user. So the first thing to bear in mind is that the digital landscape is very, very noisy. So just having an idea that may be needed within an industry isn't always enough to make that the platform of choice. There is a million apps for every use. We've all heard the phrase, there's an app for that. There really is an app or a website or a platform for everything. And if you're trying to create a platform that is successful, that people adopt, you need to consider more than just the purpose of it. You need to consider all the other things that go around that and why a consumer would choose your platform over a competitor's. So if we can take this consumer need to identify a way that your platform has an advantage over your competitors, incorporate some form of digital innovation, and I'll go through that in a second, and get those early adopters, you can create what is a successful digital delivery and actually get people to take on your platform over a competitor's. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through the 3 different elements of creating a successful digital delivery. So we're going to go through the consumer needs, different types of digital innovation, and then how to get early adoption. And if you can essentially use this as a basic formula for any project you're working on, taking into consideration that digital anatomy, this is the groundwork for creating a digital project in any industry or for any environment. So when we're talking about consumer needs, we're talking about the 5 E's. So those are ease, entertainment, economic, education, and ecosystem. So if we're talking about ease, what we're talking about is how easy is it for the consumer to use. So you can create a platform that's almost identical to somebody else's, but if theirs is easier to use or is a nicer experience for the user, they will use that other platform. So when we're talking about ease, we really need to look at the user experience, and basically people are lazy. Is it going to give them the service or product they want in the most efficient and easy to use way? Because people don't want to have to put in that extra effort when there's a platform that will do that for them. Secondly is entertainment. So we're now seeing a huge growth in people using digital platforms for entertainment. And that could be delivering entertainment itself. So the platform could be the entertainment, or it could be a facilitator for entertainment. So think of things like Netflix or Spotify. They're just facilitators to the entertainment that you're gaining through that platform. But that could also be adding an element of excitement or entertainment, or just making the engagement more fun. So if you're making a slightly more entertaining or engaging platform, that will make yours more attractive to a consumer than someone who isn't. The next thing, the most obvious one, is economics. So if it's cheaper, people will always prefer it. But also, people like to see what we're seeing is a trend of people looking at alternative payment methods. So basically, we're seeing people move more to subscription-based models and favour subscription-based models than standard one-off payments. So if you're able to use digital technology to change the way that a customer may pay for something, to add better value for what they're paying for, or to just make that offer cheaper, then people are going to want to use this platform, want to use this project. And it's one of the huge deciding factors for most people, especially now with everything that's going on and people sort of being more aware of the money. And also education. So when we talk about education, we're not always talking specifically about education in the form of training or traditional education. Actually, it's more to do with sharing and showing information, data, and giving new knowledge to a user. So if we take into account something like Fitbit, for example, Fitbit has done probably more for health of the general population than a lot of other health devices have, despite the fact that Fitbit does nothing at all for health. It literally just gives you data and knowledge on what you're doing and the life you're living so that you can make more informed decisions. So we are seeing huge amounts of people now that are more data driven. They want to see more data. They want to gain more knowledge and more information. So if you're able to show them that or put that into a platform that they can understand, this adds huge value to the consumer. And finally, as we'd already discussed, ecosystem. So if you can integrate with an ecosystem you already have, they'll be more likely to be interested in your project or product. But also, can you form an ecosystem? So can you actually take that idea that you've got and make it something bigger? Can you create an ecosystem of products and services around what you have? Because these ecosystems are much more attractive to consumers now. People are living in a digital ecosystem landscape. It's the way that we now interact with technology, and it's only going to become more prevalent. So, can you actually create something bigger than a singular product with what you're looking to create? And also, if you can actually take multiple consumer needs and put them into one project, then you're really taking it to overdrive, and you've got a huge chance of creating a successful digital project. So understanding these consumer needs is great, but the more of them that you can address, the better your project will be. So if you understand what a consumer needs and what a consumer is looking for, how do you use digital to do that? How do you use digital to create these ideas? So what we're going to go through now is essentially types of digital innovation. So when you're looking at digital technology, what can you do with digital, and how can you innovate using these tools to come up with new ideas and new offerings for your consumers? So the first and most obvious one, especially in the business landscape, is automation. So we are seeing huge amounts of platforms which automate many, many different things within our businesses. So most businesses nowadays are probably using something like Xero or various other account software to automate and simplify their bookkeeping and accounting and invoicing. And this is meaning that even small businesses can manage all of this without having to hire an accounts team. It's making life much more easy for businesses, and it's allowing them to save that cost. Now, this is a great way to essentially allow your business to grow without incurring that additional cost. And this goes back to what we said at the beginning, where with just a laptop, you can actually run a very scalable business. By embracing automation, you can actually grow much more quickly, but without having to constantly add the new resources and the new costs. And also what we're seeing is people automating and digitizing very traditional services that you wouldn't really imagine would be digitized. So this is a company called Babylon, and Babylon are a telemedicine service. So basically, you can use this platform to speak to a GP through an app and get basic sort of diagnostics and diagnosis of what's wrong with you, and they can give you advice or things to help you. Now, this is great because it's massively cutting down things like NHS waiting times. It's lightening the load for GPs, and it's giving people access to the help that they need in a platform that they're comfortable with, so they can do this from home. So this is an example of a company that's essentially seen something that is a pain point for consumers. So essentially having to sit and wait in a doctor's surgery until you're seen. They've taken that idea and they've used the idea of automation and digitizing to create a platform that delivers that for them. We've already discussed the idea of information and gamification. So as we said, Fitbit has done a huge amount for health, despite the fact Fitbit doesn't really do a lot for health. It literally just gives you a step count. But by giving people that information, it's actually got huge impacts on people's behavior and how people act. So you can actually take data and knowledge, and you can actually digitize that knowledge to create whole new platforms. And importantly as well is that you can actually add added value to this by using the idea of gamification. So with Fitbit, for example, you can see how your friends or family are doing if you're connected with them. And it actually becomes almost very competitive in how many steps you're doing, how far you're traveling, how many calories you've burnt. And people are taking this idea of gamification and really using it across all different industries. So for example, this is a platform for a sales team, and this is taking sales data and turning it into basically this is on the TV. So for every call or sale that someone's making, they're gaining points. So this creates a more competitive environment, but it's actually increasing productivity because it's gamifying that experience and making it more engaging and more entertaining for the staff. And as we discussed the ecosystems, but the biggest part of each ecosystems is integration. So can you create integrations with other platforms? So we already see a huge amount of this through things like smart homes and smart devices that we have around the home, or maybe in the office. And really, if you can create something that can integrate into that existing ecosystem, that all with that existing product, you've essentially already got a customer base there, because you're selling to people that already have product number one, and you're saying that I can add value to product number one because I've developed product number two. So you don't have to start from scratch and start looking for a brand new consumer base. There's already one there to start with that you can sell this product to. And what's interesting is there's companies that are creating integrations and making money just off the integrations. So not even just the end product, you can actually charge people for that integration. So Automatic is a company that basically created a smart box that plugs into your car, and that pulls the data and the diagnostics from your car and puts them into a UI, into a very pretty sort of user experience that you can access on your phone through an app. Now, Automatic themselves aren't actually giving you anything new. This is information that's taken directly from the car, and they're literally just presenting it in a new way for you. So essentially, they've just created a dashboard and a device. Now, the interesting thing is that the way that this business model works is you pay for the device to put into your car to actually access that data, but then you have to pay a subscription model for the app to see that data. So people are actually making money just by digitizing and integrating the things that you already have, the knowledge, the data that you already have, and putting it into a new format. And finally, personalization is, again, a trend that we're seeing across all technologies. So people nowadays want a more tailored experience. They want their devices, their platforms, their apps to be theirs. So we're seeing a huge trend in people trying to find ways to tailor those experiences. So if we take into account Netflix, if you are a Netflix user and you tend to watch a lot of horror films, for example, you'll probably see that Netflix will start to suggest films and TV shows based on what you already watch. What a lot of people don't realize is actually for every TV show or film, there's probably 4 or 5 different bits of artwork that can show, so different cover photos that show for each of those films or TV shows. Now, based on your viewing habits, Netflix has an AI that will determine if you prefer darker, grittier images or more colourful, happy images, and they will actually swap out the artwork of the different TV shows to what they think you will find more interesting, to try and get you to watch more things on their platform. So if you are someone, like say, who watches a lot of horror films, you can actually start to see that some of the cover photos on that platform will change to probably slightly darker or grittier images. So this is a great way that Netflix are tailoring the experience for each user, one in a very visual way in terms of the suggestions that they're making, but actually behind the scenes is also a lot of algorithms going on to determine what order to put things in and what images to show to get you to watch more. And on a more business level, and we're talking more sort of internally, communication and productivity is something that we're all using every day anyway now. So the fact that you're all on a webinar now is because you're using an online communication tool to watch a webinar. So as things continue to change, and I'm sure they will, I think we'll see a huge trend in more communication and productivity tools. So this could be things like Slack, which is an internal chat tool. the platforms we're using today. Now, if you are able to create platforms that allow people to communicate or be productive or collaborate in better ways, there's probably no better time to look at this type of technology than there is right now, because this is just going to be a growing trend. And people are working from home more. People will continue to work from home more, I'm sure. And we will be looking at more tools to help us run our businesses, communicate with our team, and work collaboratively using digital means. So this kind of platform is only going to become more popular. And as we discussed at the beginning, virtualization is probably the prettier of all the innovation types. But virtualization is anything to do with virtual augmented reality, creating these new environments. And through virtualization, we can basically digitize entire scenarios and environments and create experiences that may be costly or dangerous or may not be great in the real world. So this example is someone using a virtual reality headset to train for an operation. Now, this is a much safer way to do this and to practice this than, cutting people open or using cadavers or whatever. So this is a much better way to do that. It's a much cheaper way to do that. And it allows people to kind of keep, it allows people to create these dynamic environments where they can train and do things that really in the real world just wouldn't be worth doing. So those are a couple of different types of innovation, but one of the biggest things that I always say to people is it's a case of knowing what else is out there. So taking notice of what is going on in the digital landscape, taking notice of trends, new platforms that are coming out, is probably one of the best ways to discover new ideas and get an understanding of what the digital landscape is looking for and how well a service or product of your own may do. So ways to do that. Google has a great platform called Google Trends. It's obviously completely free, as most Google services are. And you can go to trends.google.com, and this will allow you to see what most people are searching for and looking for, what the growing trends are. And you can type things in, so you could type in types of technology or platforms, and you can see what the interest is from different people and in different areas. If you're looking at taking a service over to the States, for example, you could look at that type of technology in America compared to England, and you could determine, is it as popular out there? Is it going to be a waste of time, or is it going to be a great market for me? So these are great tools to use to analyze trends. There is also something called beta boards. So beta boards are great platforms for discovering new technologies and new apps and things that are coming out. So the most popular one of these is a website called Product Hunt. Product Hunt is completely free to access as well. And every day, basically people that are developing new technologies share their technology and their project on here, and people can vote on it, they can talk about it, there's discussions around it. And actually, this website in particular has grown to such success that even Apple and Google and the big brands are actually now using this website to announce some of their projects and get some early stage feedback on what they're working on. So the latest OS for Macs and iPhones actually was released on Product Hunt with some videos and things to get feedback from some of the beta testers. So it's a great way to keep on top of what's going on and discover some new things. There's also some duds on there because it is an open site. Lots of people can submit things, but it's a case of seeing what works, what doesn't work, what people like, what people don't like. And it's just a great way to get a good understanding of the industry and the wider digital landscape. And also things like Kickstarter. So most people probably will know Kickstarter or Indiegogo. But these crowdfunding platforms are actually great ways to get an idea of what people are interested in. So if you can see projects that are hugely funded, it shows you that there is a consumer interest in that project. And it's just a great way to sort of get a feel for what projects you should look at, or if you've already got one in mind, would it work? What would people think about something like this? By kind of looking at other things that are working and not working. And also tech magazines. It's slightly harder now, just they all seem to be hidden behind paywalls. But these three in particular are all completely open and free for everyone. But with these magazines, there's huge amounts of articles about the latest tech, latest trends that are coming about. And you can, if you follow these, it'll just give you an idea of what's upcoming. And if you tie all that together, it should give you a good 360 overview of trends and platforms that are coming about, how you could maybe use them, and just being aware of what's happening around you. And also, we said in one of the previous slides about getting early adopters. Some of these platforms, as well as being great ways to learn and to see what's out there, are great ways for you to get early adopters for your own platforms and projects. So you can submit your own projects to things like Product Hunt. You can put them on Kickstarter. Kickstarter is actually a great way to mitigate risk at the start of a project as well, because you're also able to, if the project does well, gain some early stage funding from it. If it doesn't do well, then you know at that point that maybe there isn't the interest that you need. And if you get a project to a point of being market ready and people think that it's interesting and innovative enough, you could even get some of these tech magazines to write reviews and do beta tests for you and write about your project. So these are great ways to get early adopters onto your platform, onto your project, and get it out there so that there's people using it, you're getting real world feedback, and you're starting that ball rolling of getting the consumers in. And also other ways that you can do that are things like focus groups, open beta and closed beta. So when we talk about open beta and closed beta, a beta test is basically having it tested before its final release. And an open beta would be anyone can join, anyone can sign up and use the platform, normally at a reduced rate or for free, on the condition that they provide feedback of their experience. And a closed beta would be invite only, maybe to a specific industry, to a small group of people that you've chosen, or to maybe it's like a waiting list and people sign up and you give it to a particular number of people. And also you can actually hire professional beta testing agencies that can do all this for you as well. So these are a couple of ways of testing these projects, but also getting those early adopters in and gathering that feedback. And when we talk, when we talk about development, so we've gone through the digital anatomy and what a project is, but there's also some trends that are starting to appear that, just for general development, are worth taking into account. So we've already discussed the mobile first consumer and mobile first development, but there's something called the no-code development movement as well, which is starting to become more popular. And that is basically using integrations to build entire platforms. So using all the tools that are already out there to create new platforms and new projects. So lots and lots of people are now starting to do this. Even people with coding knowledge are just using this as a way to speed up their workflow. And this is allowing people to, with very little coding knowledge, create ideas and get ideas out there. So there's whole sites and magazines dedicated to this movement. And it is a great way to get started if you want to prototype ideas and look at things. But even if you do have that development knowledge, the idea of the no-code movement and using existing integrations to speed up your development process is a great way to be more productive and make more money through what you're doing. Cross-platform development is something that is actually just a necessity nowadays. You can't really develop for a single platform anymore because there's so many devices out there and people are accessing information through so many different platforms that you really need to consider how that platform works and looks on everything. So from mobile to desktops, to even smartwatches are able to access the internet nowadays. And next year, it's forecast that there will be a lot of smart glasses that will come out to the market. So how is that product going to work on there? Is it going to work on there? Will consumers require it to work on that? So all these things need to be considered when we're talking about development and the trends we need to look at. So a basic development process. So I'm going to keep this very kind of top level, because unless you're a developer, you don't really need to know the ins and outs, but just enough so you can understand the process a project should go through and understand the best way to run that, so that you can either manage these projects yourself or just be aware of what's happening. So in general, most digital projects will go through a 5-stage process, and we call this a sprint. So the 5 stages are actually circular. So although they're laid out sort of linear there, actually this is a circular process where you kind of go from 1 to 5, but you can kind of keep going around in loops, constantly developing that project and changing things as they need to be changed. So the first stage is insight and stimulus. So this is actually going back to what we said at earlier on about the consumer needs and the different types of innovation. So this is looking at the things that you think consumers would see value in, consumers would want to see. It's looking at industry trends, it's looking at cultural trends, and it's basically just getting huge amounts of information to inform your ideation, to inform what you think your project will become. Then ideation is the fun bit. That's basically going through all the different ideas, all the things that you could create to identify, to address that challenge or that problem or that missing need that you've identified in stage 1. And at this point, it's a case of there is no bad ideas. The more, the merrier. Everything you can think of, throw it all out there. And then once you have all those ideas, it's a case of selection. So when you're selecting these ideas, normally what we suggest is you create a selection matrix. So that will be the various things that are important to you in terms of success for this project. So is it cost effective? Will it cost more to make than I may gain from it? How long will it take? Is the partners or things that I can integrate with that will make the build quicker? All these things, whatever it is that's important to you, and then going through and looking at which of these ideas tick those boxes or address those in the best way. And then once you have selected those ideas, maybe it's one, maybe it's a couple of ideas, it's moving it through to wireframing and prototyping. So when we talk about prototype, it doesn't have to be the finished project. It doesn't have to be something that looks pretty and does everything it needs to do. It's just about proving the concept works. So it could just be drawing out the user experience on a piece of paper and figuring out if it makes sense and if it will work for your consumers. It could be making a very basic app that kind of shows the functionality of it. When we look at physical technology, for example, Google Glasses, which came out a few years ago, their first prototype was essentially a pair of goggles with a load of sort of bits of electronics like super glued on them to sort of show how it would work. So you can, you just need to create something that shows the basics of the project and what it is and prove that it works and something that can be tested. And then finally, testing. So looking at how your consumers interact with it. Does it actually have the value you think it's going to have? Do people like it? And at this point in the testing, in the beta testing, this is usually where you could start to identify things that you think may be issues for consumers or may not work as well as they should. And this is where we can either choose to rework, go back to ideation and start again, or maybe go back to selection, choose a different one, or go back to prototyping and adjust that prototype. Or we can progress it forward. Or maybe, you've done that rework and you're just not able to make that idea work. So at some point you can kind of get away from the idea and maybe start with something new and try again. But this process, you'll find that almost every development company in the world will follow an almost identical process. It's something that everyone kind of tweaks to their own needs. But if you understand these 5 steps, this is the basic process for any digital project, whether it's a physical technology piece or if it's a virtual technology piece. Most people will follow this framework to develop projects. And also, when you do launch a project, don't assume that that is the end point. You know, people nowadays, they want more from everything. So really what we can release is what we call an MVP, a minimal viable project. And that basically is giving the consumers enough so that there is value and that they may use the product, but it doesn't mean that it's done. You can release further versions of it, you can release updates of it. And consumers almost expect this now because it shows momentum in your brand and in the platform. So just because it's been launched, don't stop with that process. You can still keep running through that 5-stage sprint and keep developing that project. And basically, if you can do this, this will create a framework for a successful digital development. So if you take all those things that we've gone through and put them into kind of a step-by-step process. So basically we have a process that we use for innovation with our clients called the EVE methodology. And within this, we look at different ways to innovate on a product or service or a company. And I'm not going to go in depth into all those different bits, but on the top level, we have something that we call the 3 pillars of innovation. And that is the roots, the core, and the outreach. So the roots are basically like the foundation of a product or a service. So that's the things that kind of physically make it work. The core is essentially what is the product, what is the service, and it's the first thing that most people will see. And the reach or the outreach is the ways that your consumers will interact with that project and how you get it out there. So if we take all of the things that we've discussed and we look at how we can put it into this process, then the roots of this would be the anatomy that we looked at. So it's the physical bits you need to make your project work. It's understanding that car analogy, the storage, the back end, the front end, and really understanding the infrastructure and getting that right. Then the core of the project would be, what is the project? What is the idea? And the way that we can develop this idea is taking one of these consumer needs, so the 5 E's, then taking one of these types of innovation and or multiple, bringing them together to develop a new idea or a new service that might have value to the consumer. And then outreach is how do we get it out there? So using things like the beta boards, the different magazines, creating focus groups and getting that information. These are all ways to get it out there. So if you can bring all these together, then that is essentially the start to finish process for any digital service or project. And then obviously, even when you have gone through that process, you can still run through the sprints and keep developing that project and keep going further. So I hope that was very top level, and that was a very basic overview of what is a very complicated industry, and there's many complexities to it. But what we wanted to do is kind of just give sort of a framework and understanding of how to navigate this industry and how to understand it. So I'll pass back over to Wayne, who can go through actually how we can offer more tailored support and help, and how we can help actually with developing some of these ideas and some of these projects a bit further for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Thanks very much for taking us through that. And John, I know you've sent us a question through. Jamie, do you want to just drop a response to John? I know he's just sent it to the panelists, so you might not want it to be on public, so you maybe want to just respond to him directly.
Yeah, I'll respond now.
Yeah, but yeah, this is really interesting stuff. Again, guys, this is very top level stuff. You know, we've kind of in 90 minutes, we're kind of trying to fly through all of this information and give you as much insight as we can about understanding a digital product. And you know, when Jamie's talking about projects and products, you know, we're talking about all different things. It might be an e-commerce website, it might be an app-based thing, it might be a subscription service that somebody subscribes to and you offer value through. It might be something like a product that you make that you send out to them through the post and that you know, they're buying into. Like digital could mean anything, you know, so you know, the world's your oyster when we're considering that. But the fundamentals that we're talking about, where we're talking about the 5-step sprint process, it's fundamentally the same for everything. You know, where, you know, what do I need to make, you know, so what's out there. So if you think of yourself as a physical building, you know, if you're a retailer and we're in the COVID now and you can't, and there's a lockdown and people can't come into your shop to buy your shoes, where's the value? What can you create that adds value to your consumers that goes beyond them physically needing to come to your store to buy your product? So naturally you would be thinking something along the lines of e-commerce or something like that, selling online. But that's what we mean. It's taking insights and stimulus. So what's out there, what's technologically available, what's happening culturally, what's happening in the technology world, and where can I add value? What are my consumers looking for? What do they need, and how can I add value? And when you take those two things, those become the stimulus and insight become essentially the root of everything. You know, once you've got that, you can just start throwing ideas out there, trying them out. You can do this over a video conference as well. I would highly recommend, just as an experiment, if there's just you, even if you're a small business, just doing this over a video call like what we're doing now. Set up a call 10 o'clock in the morning with you and 3 of your colleagues, put a problem on the table, and then just start spitballing. How can we address that? How can we use what we've got in our skills, in our personnel, in our machinery, in our ecosystem and our structure? How can we use that to adapt to address that problem? How can we pivot what we do to offer something new, or to adapt to a new way of working? If you think about during the pandemic, there was all that stuff going on with like they were looking for face masks and ventilators and stuff like that, and all of these engineering companies that came out and sort of said, well, we kind of make this, but we could adapt our skills to make that. It's kind of the same principle. If you can think in that way, that's what it's about. It's about agility. The key, though, is not just relying on what you just do now. This is how we do it. This is how we make our money. This is how we're comfortable. Because if you think like that, then you're at real risk of being stuck in the mud. And the fact is, all the big disruptors of the last decade and beyond really all come from a digital world. And it doesn't matter what scale of business you are. It really doesn't matter if you're a huge global business. It makes no difference. If you're not moving and you're not adjusting and you're not adapting, then, you know, the likelihood is you're going to be in trouble. And the digital, you know, you don't have to be digital, but you certainly need to embrace it. And with that, some of the stuff we're talking about today is just to tell you what support and available is out there. So the Growth Hub, as I said at the start, are offering multiple areas of support. These webinars are one, just to give some insight and just to give you an update. Some upcoming ones that are coming 25th September. It's all about cybercrime, keeping your business safe, understanding internet security. Very important these days. There's a lot of stuff going on around that. 28th September, becoming a zero hero. So this is all about online accounting and how to better manage your accounts. 2nd of October, CRM system, so customer relationship management. So this is how to, the importance of having an effective CRM, how to look after your customers' data, how to keep them engaged, and keep a track of what's going on. You know, there's so much automation out there that you can use, and it can integrate across the whole of your business now. You know, you can link your finances to your customers, to your manufacturing, to your deliveries, to whatever it is you're doing. It all connects, you know. So if you can get into that, then these webinars are really helpful. I have posted as well, just to let you know, in the chat at the start, you'll see a couple of links. Sorry, my slides keep shifting about for some reason. At the start, if you look into the chat, at the start of the chat, there's a couple of links in there where I've posted links to the Grow My SME website. And in there, you'll be able to see a list of all the events that are upcoming. So those webinars that I was just talking about there, all that information is in there as well, in terms of what webinars are available. Excuse me, I've just gone a few slides ahead here. So there we go. Right. So the next one I want to speak to you about is the thing called the Digital Catalyst. So this is one-to-one involvement with your business. Essentially, a consultant like us, Edenic, are on that team of consultants. We come into your business and we work with you to help you understand digital technology and build it into your business to help you grow and do cool new things. So essentially, all that stuff Jamie's just been through in the webinar, we kind of apply the theory to your business. So it's one-to-one support. It's completely free of charge. And basically, this is how it works. So at the start, once you've registered for it, and I'll go through that in a second, once you've registered for it, we do a digital benchmarking with you, which is essentially us looking at your business and working out where you're at now. What digital technology do you use? How do you think about digital technology? Is it part of your strategy? Do you have people appointed to look at that stuff? Where does it work? If you're a big business, if you're a one-man band or a small business, how does it work? We look at all that. Then the data that comes out of the back of that that benchmarking then informs what becomes then a workshop where the consultant comes into your business, or we might have to do it virtually depending on the COVID situation, but basically comes into your business, works with you and your team, and we adopt the information that we've taken from that report and also the stuff that we've spoken to you about your business, to try and apply new thinking to it, come up with new ideas, new ways of working, new profit ideas, new market ideas, new product ideas, and all integrated with digital. How can we use digital technology to inform that and make that work? Off the back of the workshop, then there's an action plan. So we draw this up and we say, okay, these are the things we found. These are the opportunities that you could be looking at. Here you go. And we'll give you the action plan, but then we'll also direct you to support that might be out there. So that might be technology providers that can help you make this stuff. If it's a technology-based thing, it might be funding, it might be partnerships. It could be any number of things depending on what we come up with, but ultimately trying to link you to something to make those ideas come to life. So that's what that's about.
Wait, sorry, just before we move on. John, sorry, I'm trying to respond to you, but I'm not able to respond while I'm sharing my screen. So if you just bear with us for a couple more slides until we get to the questions section, I'll send you a direct response to your question there.
Yeah, okay, cool. So in a nutshell, Digital Catalyst. Okay, I won't go through all this verbatim because you can read through it, but ultimately what we're trying to do, we're trying to hold your hand and guide you through some of this stuff, help you work more efficiently and effectively, develop new products and services, enhance your customer offer, win more work, attract and retain staff, or keeping your cyber safe, looking at what security you have in place, but ultimately trying to build digital into your business, or help you embrace that so that you're able to navigate and move about. And as I said at the start, particularly prevalent in the times that we're in. Some examples of projects, far from exhaustive, so don't read these into gospel, but just some ideas. So that might be moving your operations to the cloud. It might be introducing online accounting. It might be introducing an e-commerce element to your business so you can sell online. It might be helping you manage your customers better. Any number of things on top of that. It's not, these are not fixed things in terms of what I'm saying in the list. Every business is completely unique, and so it will vary as to what you get to. I've lost sharing again for some reason. Here we go. Okay, so technologies that add value to the business, helping you manage these technologies, understanding what cloud computing is, integrating existing systems. So Jamie was talking about earlier on in terms of ecosystems. So what do you already have in place? What can we build into that to make that better or make that stronger? Or what else can you integrate into externally to add value? But yeah, ultimately, I'm going through all these lists, but I'm just going to skip through it. I think you get the point. We're trying to make you more agile, more flexible, more resilient, help the business grow, get you more profits through the door. And future-proof, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. It's future-proofing. It's helping you adapt to what is. You hear this term new normal. Well, it's not really a new normal now. It's digital is here and has been for some time, and it is the big disruptor for just about every industry. So if you're not at least embracing it and looking at what's out there, you're doing yourself a disservice. So here's some details on the screen. Again, there's a telephone number that you can ring there. There's an email address, digitalcatalyst@winninmoves.com. And that web address, again, if you go to the chat, if you look at the chat box at the bottom, at the very top of the chat, I have actually posted that as a link. So you can just copy that into your browser. And basically all you do is you go in, you register interest, and the Growth Hub evaluate your business to make sure you qualify. But ultimately, if you're a small business or if you're an SME, classed as an SME, then you're pretty much going to qualify. It's completely free of charge. It's around about 12 hours of support or something like that in total. So, you know, it's a couple of days of your time. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain, but ultimately it's to help you implement some of the stuff that we've been talking about today. With that, if there's any questions, we'd be very happy to take those from you now. If you'd like to have a post in the chat or use the Q&A box, we'd be very happy to take those questions from you. Just while you're thinking about that as well, I'm just going to launch a quick poll. If you'd be so kind as to just fill this in for me, it'll take you just a couple of seconds. This just helps us understand if the webinars we're delivering are useful, or if you're getting the insight from us, or if the topics we're covering are worthwhile. So the more insight we get from that, the more informed we'll be. So if you'd be kind enough just to, oh, sorry, if I launched it. There we are. If you'd be kind enough just to fill out the poll, that would be really good, just to give us a little bit of insight as to what's going on.